Kevin Costner once said that his life was made up of simple things like volleyball, long drives, and the people who stood beside him. He believed that no one truly creates anything alone, especially movies, and that every success is built on the support of friends, mentors, and those who quietly shape a person's life. Yet behind that calm and thoughtful image was a personal life filled with secrets, heartbreak, and complicated choices that often felt more dramatic than the films he made. His marriage ended in 2023 after 19 years, a loss that surprised many. What shocked people even more was what came next. Just 10 months later, his ex-wife became engaged to someone close to him, a friend he trusted. That betrayal cut deeply and reopened wounds that had been buried for decades. Over the years, rumors of affairs, a secret child he denied for a long time, and relationships that left Hollywood stunned followed him everywhere. From whispers during the Bull Durham era to a painful paternity battle, his private life was never as clean or heroic as the characters he played. Now, at 70, he has found someone new, but many still wonder if a man who spent so many years breaking hearts can truly change. Kevin Costner was born on January 18, 1955, in Linwood, California. From the moment he arrived, emotion surrounded his life. He was the youngest of 3 boys, but his family carried a deep sadness. His middle brother, Mark Douglas, had died just days after birth in 1953. That loss left a quiet weight in the house that never disappeared. Kevin grew up sensing the silence in moments that should have felt normal. He noticed how his father's face tightened during small problems and how grief lived quietly between family members. His father worked long, demanding hours as an electrician for Southern California Edison. The job provided stability but required frequent moves. Every few years, the family packed up and started over in a new town. For Kevin, each move felt like losing a piece of himself. He never stayed long enough to let friendships grow deep roots. Because of this, he learned to rely on his imagination, building an inner world he could carry wherever he went. When the Costner family moved to Compton in the 1960s, Kevin's world shifted again. The city was changing quickly, moving from mostly white neighborhoods to a largely black community by the 1970s. Kevin was often the only white student in his class and sometimes the only one in his entire grade. This made him think about race and identity at a very young age, long before he truly understood society's rules. His Baptist upbringing gave him structure and comfort. Church became a safe place where he felt grounded. He sang in the choir and found peace in music, poetry, and small creative moments that helped him cope. The neighborhood could be rough, and trouble was never far away, but Kevin stayed close to his family and focused on the things that made him feel alive. School became an important place for him to push himself. At Cabrillo Middle School and later at Mount Whitney High School and Villa Park High School, he poured his energy into sports. He played football, baseball, and basketball, even though he was only 5 feet 2 inches tall when he graduated. His size never stopped him. He ran hard, fought for every play, and refused to give up. He also joined the marching band and wrote poetry when the noise of the world became too much. Even when money was tight, he took piano and guitar lessons. He stood on school stages singing songs he had written himself, unsure of where it might lead. Those small performances planted seeds of belief in him. Years later, that same creative spark would lead to his country music album Untold Truths in 1998. At the time, he did not realize it, but these early moments were teaching him how to turn emotion into something meaningful. Money was always a concern in the Costner household. His father worked tirelessly, and his mother supported the family as a welfare worker, but the 1960s were not easy. Kevin took on odd jobs, mowing lawns and doing whatever he could to earn a little extra. When he watched Western films, especially How the West Was Won at age 7, something powerful stirred inside him. The men on screen seemed larger than life. They were brave, honest, and carried strength in their eyes. Those stories made him feel that storytelling could lift someone beyond the life they were born into. Music continued to call him back. He practiced piano and guitar whenever he had the chance, playing in the living room, at church, and during school events. He wrote songs inspired by the quiet struggles inside his chest. Even as a child, he believed art could help people survive hardship, and he held on to that belief tightly. By the time he graduated high school in 1973, Kevin had moved 3 times in 10 years. Each move took something from him but also made him adaptable. He finished at Villa Park High School still small in stature but fierce in spirit. He competed in basketball, baseball, and football and even played alongside Dennis Burt, who later became a professional baseball player. Sports gave him balance and a place to release his emotions. In 1973, he enrolled at California State University Fullerton with a practical goal. He wanted a stable future, something safe that would make his parents proud. Tuition cost only $99 per semester, and business classes seemed like the responsible path. But life gently pushed him toward who he truly was. In his senior year around 1977, he walked into an acting class out of curiosity. One class turned into many nights a week. Soon he was performing in campus plays like Invitation to March, A View from the Bridge, and Waiting for Lefty. People began to notice something raw and serious in him. By 1978, he graduated with a business degree, but his heart had already chosen a different road. Kevin met Cindy Silver in 1975 while they were both students. They were young, hopeful, and found comfort in each other. Cindy believed in him, but when he talked about acting, fear crept in. Acting was uncertain, and they were trying to build a stable life together. Their relationship held both love and tension, shaping him long before fame entered his life. Everything changed in 1978, shortly after they married. On their honeymoon flight home from Puerto Vallarta, Kevin noticed actor Richard Burton sitting nearby. Burton had purchased extra seats for privacy, but Kevin gathered the courage to approach him. He admitted he wanted to be an actor but was afraid. Burton listened carefully and gave him simple advice. If you want to be an actor, go all the way and do not look back. That sentence settled deep inside Kevin and gave him the push he needed. He joined an acting studio and committed fully to the path he had been avoiding. Hollywood was not kind at first. After graduating, Kevin moved to Los Angeles and took any job he could find. He worked backstage at theaters, auditioned endlessly, and faced more than 100 rejections. His first film role, Malibu Hot Summer, was shot in 1974 but released years later. It was a low-budget surf movie that embarrassed him deeply. He played a ranch hand in awkward scenes that made him question his choices. The producers criticized his acting but liked his appearance. Kevin later called the film exploitative and regretted doing it, but it taught him what he did not want to become. In 1982, he appeared uncredited in Francis Ford Coppola's Rumble Fish. Despite working with big names, the film failed financially, and Kevin struggled to survive. He couch-surfed, worked odd jobs, and learned that even prestigious projects offered no guarantees. In 1983, he filmed scenes for The Big Chill, playing the character whose death connects the story. His scenes were cut, leaving only his body in a coffin. The experience hurt deeply, but the director later cast him in Silver Ado. Before that, Kevin starred in The Gunrunner, a film that gained attention only after he became famous. Critics found it dull, and Kevin continued waiting tables and auditioning. Silver Ado in 1985 finally gave him a breakthrough. He played Jake, a charming gunslinger, and critics praised his authenticity. The film was not a huge hit, but it opened doors. In 1987, he became Elliot Ness in The Untouchables. He pushed for better pay, believing in the project. The film was a massive success, earning over $150 million and earning him major recognition. A year later, Bull Durham turned him into a romantic lead. His chemistry with Susan Sarandon sparked rumors that followed him for years. Field of Dreams in 1989 showed a softer side of him and became a lasting classic. He turned down Pretty Woman to avoid being boxed into one role and chose darker, riskier projects instead. His personal life, however, grew more complicated. Rumors and pressure strained his marriage. Then came Dances with Wolves, a project he believed in so strongly that he invested his own money. He acted, directed, and produced the film, which went on to win 7 Academy Awards. It respected native cultures in ways few Westerns had before. Yet the success came at a personal cost. The pressure and exhaustion pushed him close to burnout, and he walked away from a massive sequel offer, needing time to breathe. Kevin Costner's life has always been a balance of creativity, ambition, love, and loss. Behind the calm voice and steady presence is a man shaped by constant movement, emotional weight, and the belief that art can carry people through the hardest moments of their lives. Later in his career, when some of his films did not perform as well as expected, including Horizon, the studio slowly and quietly allowed plans for sequels to disappear. There was no big announcement or dramatic ending, just a quiet shift. This moment marked a clear change in Kevin Costner's career. He moved away from large franchise-style films and turned toward stories that felt more personal and meaningful to him. At the same time, his private struggles were becoming more visible, even if most people did not fully understand what he was carrying. When he stepped onto the Oscar stage and spoke about Native American rights and his own Cherokee heritage, viewers saw confidence and pride. What they did not see was how exhausted he was behind the scenes. The long 4-month shoot for Dances with Wolves had involved freezing winds, blizzards, and endless workdays that drained everyone involved. Production designer Jeffrey Brogdon later described how physically harsh the experience was and how it wore down the entire cast and crew. Kevin himself admitted that the emotional and physical weight of that project stayed with him for years and never fully left his body or mind. As time passed, the industry also began to question some of the practices used during that film. Dances with Wolves was made without intimacy coordinators, something Hollywood now considers essential for protecting actors. At the time, Kevin defended the choice, saying authenticity was the priority. However, co-star Mary McDonnell later shared that the lack of that kind of support made her feel exposed and vulnerable. In 2025, when lawsuits began addressing unsafe on-set practices from earlier decades, the film was mentioned as an example of why the industry needed to change. Even with these criticisms, Kevin's fame continued to grow. In 1991, he starred in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, a massive success that earned around $390 million on a $65 million budget. Bryan Adams's song from the film dominated music charts, staying at number 1 in the UK for 16 weeks and helping carry the movie around the world. Critics made fun of Kevin's American accent, but audiences did not care. They showed up in huge numbers. The shoot itself was chaotic. The production had only 10 weeks to film before winter arrived, and rival projects were racing against the same deadline. Tension grew between Kevin and director Kevin Reynolds, especially during post-production. Reynolds eventually walked away because of disagreements over studio edits. The finished film had noticeable mistakes, including scenes that felt abruptly cut, such as a scribe who suddenly speaks despite earlier being shown without a tongue. Still, Alan Rickman's performance as the Sheriff of Nottingham stood out. Rickman was unhappy with the original script and asked friends to help rewrite his lines. His work earned him a BAFTA award, while Kevin received a Razzie. Even so, the crowds kept coming, and the movie became one of the year's biggest hits. That same year, Kevin appeared in Oliver Stone's JFK. The film cost $40 million and earned about $205 million worldwide, but it sparked intense controversy. Critics accused it of promoting conspiracy theories. Kevin took the role seriously and spent a great deal of time researching real documents and records. Some of what he discovered disturbed him so deeply that he chose to keep it private. The film earned 8 Oscar nominations and won 2. The public debate around it grew so intense that it helped push Congress to pass the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act, which forced the release of government documents years earlier than originally planned. Kevin's long courtroom monologue in the film was examined, criticized, praised, and debated endlessly. It became one of his most talked-about performances. In 1994, Kevin starred in Wyatt Earp, a carefully researched western that ran nearly 3 hours. It cost $63 million, more than twice the budget of Tombstone, which was released around the same time. While Tombstone became more popular, Wyatt Earp earned only $56 million, and critics complained that it was too slow. However, historians praised its accuracy, especially the famous gunfight at the OK Corral. They noted that the gunfighters stood only about 15 feet apart, unlike the exaggerated distances shown in most westerns. Kevin spent months preparing for the role and focused deeply on historical detail, but despite his effort, the film failed to leave a lasting mark with audiences. Then came what many saw as his biggest downfall. The Postman was released in 1997 with a budget of $80 million but earned only $27 million worldwide. Titanic had opened just a week earlier and dominated theaters everywhere. Critics were harsh, giving The Postman extremely low ratings and calling it overly serious and misguided. The film received multiple Razzie nominations, and Kevin's reputation in Hollywood took a real hit. For the first time in years, people openly questioned whether his run as a leading man was over. Kevin Costner never liked standing still. So when he stepped onto the music scene in 2007 with a band called Modern West, many assumed it was just another celebrity hobby. But he kept going, showing that this was something deeply personal. When his album Untold Truths was released in November 2008, it became clear he was not doing this for attention. He stood on stage with a guitar, sang lead vocals, and helped write many of the songs. One track, 90 Miles an Hour, was inspired by long days spent on his Montana ranch. The album reached number 61 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart and number 35 on the Heatseekers chart. Soon, he was performing in front of massive crowds, including more than 100,000 people at Cheyenne Frontier Days. Critics who once doubted him began to accept that he was serious about music. Songs like Superman 14 and Long Hot Night received steady airplay, and fans connected with the honest stories in his lyrics. At the same time, Kevin poured his energy into another ambitious dream. In 2008, he invested $3 million of his own money into a project called Tatanka in South Dakota. It was a 35-acre center designed to honor Native American history and the story of the buffalo. The site included a museum, visitor center, and life-sized scenes showing Lakota hunters and buffalo. From the beginning, people questioned his motives, especially since he was going through an expensive divorce at the same time. Critics dismissed it as a vanity project. Kevin insisted it was about education and respect for history. The criticism grew louder when artist Peggy Detmers accused him of breaking their agreement. The lawsuit lasted for years, turning Tatanka into a symbol of how difficult it can be to pursue meaningful work under constant scrutiny. In 2023, the South Dakota Supreme Court ruled in Kevin's favor, but by then the project had already taken an emotional toll. That same year, he released Swing Vote, a political drama in which he played Bud Johnson, an alcoholic single father whose vote decides a presidential election. The role hit close to home because Kevin carried regrets about his own relationship with his father. When funding fell apart, he personally covered more than $16 million to keep the film alive. It earned just over that amount at the box office, but critics like Roger Ebert praised its creative idea and Kevin's performance. During this period, Kevin was constantly balancing touring with his band, reading scripts, and trying to keep his life from collapsing under its own weight. In 2010, Modern West released another album called Turn It On. It sounded louder, freer, and more confident. Kevin worked with artists like Vince Gill and Sarah Beck, pushing the band further into a roots rock sound. Before the album could fully gain momentum, tragedy struck. The band's tour bus crashed in Europe. Kevin suffered only minor injuries, but the shock forced him to slow down and rethink his pace. He focused on healing, spent time with his family, and then returned to touring with renewed purpose. In 2012, Kevin invested in a new project called Lake Kostner in Montenegro, a $20 million eco-resort designed to combine luxury with environmental responsibility. He believed strongly in environmental causes, but soon local officials and environmental groups accused the project of breaking regulations. Lawsuits followed, and the press framed it as another risky Costner gamble. Kevin stayed committed, learning firsthand how complicated international business and environmental politics could be. Everything changed again in 2018 when Yellowstone premiered. Kevin's role as John Dutton brought him back to the center of pop culture. He earned $500,000 per episode initially, and by season 5, his salary rose to $1.3 million per episode. His earnings surpassed those of the entire original cast combined. The show attracted more than 20 million viewers at its peak, and for a while, it felt like Kevin had reached a powerful late career high. But Horizon remained his passion project. In 2023, he directed and funded a Civil War Western saga meant to span multiple films. The project cost between $50 and $100 million, with Kevin contributing $38 million himself. Filming lasted 9 months across Utah. When the first chapter premiered, it earned only about $1 million during opening weekend and failed to gain traction. Lawsuits followed, along with accusations of bullying, financial mismanagement, and production delays. Fans who wanted the project to succeed watched it struggle. At the same time, Kevin clashed with Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan over creative control and scheduling. Kevin wanted approval over scripts, but Paramount refused. Negotiations fell apart, rumors spread, and by 2024, his exit from the show became official. He left feeling angry and disappointed, believing something meaningful had been taken from him. More controversy followed in 2024 when a stunt performer filed a lawsuit accusing Kevin of directing an unscripted and violent scene without consent or proper oversight. Kevin denied the claims, saying all scenes were rehearsed and approved. The case moved into 2025, casting another shadow over his career. Additional reports described on-set conflicts, including an alleged physical altercation with a co-star. These stories added to the growing sense that his final years on Yellowstone were troubled. His personal life was equally complex. Kevin married Cindy Silver in 1978, and they had 3 children together. He once described her as everything he admired in women, but their marriage ended in 1994 amid rumors of infidelity. The divorce settlement was one of the largest Hollywood had seen at the time. In the years that followed, a paternity case confirmed he had a son named Liam, a situation that brought more public scrutiny. Later, he married Christine Baumgartner, and they built a family together. Their divorce in 2023 was painful and public, involving financial disputes and allegations of betrayal. The shock deepened when Christine became engaged to one of Kevin's friends less than a year later. Those close to him said the betrayal reopened old wounds. Despite rumors linking him to other famous women, Kevin insisted he preferred quiet, private connections. By mid-2025, he found companionship with Kelly Nunn Gores, a wellness advocate who had also experienced divorce. Their relationship grew slowly and quietly, away from flashing cameras. Friends said she brought calm and optimism into his life. After decades of success, failure, love, loss, and controversy, Kevin Costner found himself once again searching for balance. For those around him, what mattered most was that after everything he had endured, he finally seemed to have room to breathe again.